this is Lee back once again for another video, and you may be asking, Lee, where have you been all this time? Why do you keep disappearing and coming back? Well, I do have other things that I do besides reviews, but I do enjoy them, so I do come back. And then you may be asking yourself, Lee, when are you going to review the Mae Young Classic on the WWE Network? Well, I have an answer for you. I'm going to review it today. Yes. And you may, of course, realize, because it's all about the timing of things, that the Mae Young Classic on the WWE Network displays its finals later tonight. So this video will be out of date, as WJ would say, by the time you see it. But that's okay, because that's the kind of the whole point of the WWE Network. You buy it for whatever that price was. I don't remember how much it costs, but you get it for a month. You watch everything you want, then you cancel your subscription, and then later you kind of think, I kind of want to watch something, so you buy it again, watch it again. So even though it's going to be streaming live according to WWE, nevertheless you can watch it whenever you want to. So the Mae Young Classic will be reviewed by me as soon as possible, as soon as I can get these videos out. I've taken copious notes. It's quite a mess, with my popcorn chicken fingers. But I so far have quite enjoyed the show, and so I'll be sharing my thoughts in the upcoming videos, so I hope you enjoy. And thank you for your patience. Of course, they will include spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, then don't watch them, just watch the show. I can give my recommendation right now. It's worth watching if you like women's wrestling, if you want to see what it's all about, but you've just been waiting for WWE to put its stamp of approval on this wrestling professional phenomenon. So, see you soon in future videos. Hello, this is Lee back once again for another video, and it's been a while, but I'm back, and I'm going to do my best to get out my thoughts on the Mae Young Classic, this 32-person all-women's professional wrestling tournament, streamed on the WWE Network exclusively. Clips are available here and there elsewhere, but you have to buy the World Wrestling Entertainment Network, at least for a month, and in order to watch this streaming thing. Now, it's kind of its own thing, apparently. A little bit of introduction before I get into the matches. Obviously, it's a very long program. It's broken up into episodes, and they released 4 episodes. I believe it was August 28th, 2017. And then they released another 4 episodes on September 4th. And then the finals will be streamed live today on the WWE Network, September 12th, 2017. Now the thing is, other than the finals of this tournament, one-on-one match, it was all pre-recorded back in July, I believe it was, possibly June, July of 2017. So, it's not live unless you were there in person. The venue, the Full Sail University Performance Center, Orlando, Florida, same location, I believe, as NXT, which, I'm way behind on my WWE NXT, developmental watching. But I gotta say, as I have said in past videos, that NXT, even though it's supposed to be the developmental territory, many believe, as far as at least women's wrestling goes, is better than the main product, the, SmackDown and Raw, which actually I haven't watched those in ages either. With me, there's just so much wrestling out there that could be watched. I used to be a regular TNA watcher. Of course, that's now Global Force Wrestling. They've gone through all kinds of changes. I'll have to get to that in the future video. But if you want to watch women's wrestling, it's, it's a little difficult because you've got so many different programs. You've got Lucha Underground, which of course goes season by season. It's not necessarily regular, and of course it's not live when you see it. I don't care about live. I mean, it's nice to see an independent show here and there. It's inexpensive, and you can see everything up close. You're not way back in a balcony somewhere. But it's still a little bit costly. It's time consuming. These shows go on for hours and hours. So let me get back into the Mae Young Classic. So they'll be showing this. I believe it's 9 or 10 p.m. depending on your time, possibly 7 for Pacific time. But I plan to be there to watch it. Well, not there in person. I'll be streaming over the interwebs, if you will. Like so many others. But even if you miss it, I'm pretty sure I can safely say it's going to be a good show. Well recommended. Now, I have many notes, so I may be referring to my scribbled, hieroglyphs here. Cuneiform, just kidding, from your Earth's past. But anyway, I will be referring to my notes, sharing my thoughts on the mini matches for the Mae Young Classic. So, it's up to you how you want to watch it, of course. You have those choices. You can just watch episode by episode. You can watch the whole thing. You can skip around, watch matches that you enjoy. I'm going to say right off the bat that what I appreciate, first of all, is, Triple H always gets kind of the credit for this, but he admits himself on the Bracketology 47-minute pre-show program, which I did watch, which is not necessary to watch, but it is interesting, kind of a fun little thing to get you psyched up for, 7 hours of wrestling. Huh. But if you want to watch that, I appreciate it because it finally showcases for, fans who limit themselves to only official WWE programming, finally get to see women's wrestling that's actually good, that's been produced since the early 1990s. Because really we haven't had any good quality. People talk about Trish Stratus and Lita. No offense to them. They had some great matches in that era, with Molly Holly and Ivory and Jacqueline, a couple other people that they've given credit over the years. Alundra Blaze, which was much more well known as Medusa in WCW. That period, you had some standout stars, but still they kind of got short shrift, and they were sort of crammed into these Attitude Era kind of sleazy storylines. Prior to that, you had Joshi appearances on both WWF and WCW, Bull Nakano and Aja Kong, and QT Suzuki and Akira Hokuto, and people like that. But the North American audience really didn't see women's wrestling at high quality for a long, long time. I mean, sure, there's Mexico, but even the Mexican, AAA style wrestling I've seen, it's still just, I don't know, it's just not to my taste. The women there, still a little bit more like eye candy. They don't do quite as many of the amazing moves. You have people like Sexy Star. Okay, I'm just going to say this part really quick before I get into the Mae Young Classic. I have so much catching up to do. There was a story, and I just saw a brief clip. I didn't see the whole bloody affair. But apparently Sexy Star, who have come to respect, seeing in these Lucha Underground, she was chastised by many in the wrestling community. And appears to be, real, not kayfabe, is that she injured Rosemary, Courtney Rush, at the end of this match. Supposedly there was some backstage, animosity going on between the various wrestlers, and she presumably decided to take it out on Rosemary. Kind of shades of Yoshiko and Act Yakakaza, said the name wrong, but, sometimes wrestlers let their tempers get the better of them, and instead of acting professionally, they lash out at their co-workers. I believe this what led to Raka Khan and Nikki Roxx fighting backstage at TNA. It sometimes happens, they're human beings, but it's sad when that professionalism goes away and real injuries are inflicted. So I wish, Courtney Rush the best of recovery, and I don't know what's gotten into Sexy Star, but hopefully she learns from this experience and I don't know. She deserves some time away because that's unacceptable. So I'm very disappointed in her if that's the case, if she's really as guilty as they say. Um, at least, well, she didn't blind the poor woman like what happened with Yoshiko's opponent. But anyway, so poor situation there. Setting that all aside, Mae Young Classic. Now, I was not familiar with Mae Young. She was the sort of partner of Fabulous Moolah, much more well known in WWF. And they named this tournament after her. She was, one of these early stars back in the day, in the black and white days when women's wrestling wasn't taken seriously then either. It was still kind of an oddity. You had a couple of, attractive women that kind of dominated the scene. But Mae Young, over the years, many say, she's kind of like the grandmother backstage. A lot of people liked her. Fabulous Moolah was much more in the spotlight, but Mae Young apparently was much more likable. Moolah supposedly was one of these people that kind of just manipulated stuff, always to her advantage. She kind of rubbed people the wrong way, and I know after her death, people look back and thought, nah, I didn't really like her, but Mae Young liked her. Of course, as a young person, my experience of professional wrestling was these two elder ladies, these senior citizens, trying to wrestle, and it was kind of an oddity. If you're 80 years old, how can you take bumps on the, squared circle? But whatever. They named it after her as a tribute, so there you go. Well, what the Mae Young Classic did was it showcased. I finally got to my point. Thanks for watching. They got to present many of these Shimmer wrestlers that I've been following all along. And I'm not one of those fanboys who's going to say, oh, I knew all. The point is, these are not all rookies. These are not first-timers. These are not people that WWE produced. These are wrestlers they've had their careers already elsewhere. And you can watch their matches elsewhere. But what the Mae Young Classic finally does, for those people that say, oh, I don't care unless it's WWE approved, which, I've had a whole thing about, fan brand loyalty, how people hated WCW until WWE got a hold of it, and then they liked it as soon as WWE gave them permission to like it. It'd be the same if, let's say TNA gets purchased by WWE in the future. All the people that bashed TNA up to now will finally be able to say, well, I like this about it, I like that. It wasn't so bad. But up to now, they're forced to hate it. Just because it's the competition, however small the competition is. Well, if you hated Shimmer or ignored Shimmer up until now, you can't ignore it anymore. Because according to the WWE, Shimmer is great. Shimmer is amazing. Sarah Del Rey, Sarah Amato, is the trainer for the women for NXT. I think what was the other guy's name? I forget his name, but they released one of their trainers. There's a bit of a scandal, kind of some personal issues. But anyway, Sarah Amato's got much more of a role, and they actually showed her in the Mae Young Classic. They didn't give her an interview spot, but she appears in the ring several times, congratulating, her proteges and mentoring, others. So Sarah Del Rey, great wrestler in her own right, and I don't know what kind of backstage deals might be going on between Shimmer and WWE, other than a lot of Shimmer footage from matches I've seen, and others, a few I haven't seen yet, were featured on this program, the Mae Young Classic. So if you're a WWE fan, you're now discovering what Shimmer is, what I've been talking about all this time, all these, short years that I've been on YouTube. Shimmer women athletes, Dave Prazak and Allison Danger, now entirely Dave Prazak, and his backstage team, which we don't get to see, produced this all-women's promotion in Berwyn, Illinois, Chicagoland area. And it's the thing about Shimmer is the women's matches are treated as if they were, men's professional wrestling matches, and that yes, there's women in them, and some of them, they have their pretty hair and everything, whatever, but they wrestle for the whole time. They don't just have a short match. It's not just a gimmick. they do all the stuff that you would expect, in a wrestling match. It's treated, in the egalitarian way. So it's nice to see Mae Young Classic showcasing matches that, I didn't time every single match, but they seemed, normal. It wasn't just like, okay, 2 minutes and stop, 3 minutes and stop. They didn't, brawl into the crowd or anything like that. And there are some differences, and I'll get into those, but one of them is, the WWE wrestling ropes on the ring are actual ropes. They're not steel cables, and so it's a little harder for wrestlers to kind of balance on them, especially if they're not familiar with that style of ring, because a lot of these people have not wrestled for WWE ever, or for a very, very long time. Maybe they appeared in 1 or 2 matches. Mercedes Martinez appeared in a match against Victor back in the 90s. I think it was the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I don't have an exact date on that, but I believe it was during the Attitude Era, so probably late 90s. Been a long time. And some of them have appeared in NXT, like EV, and some others. Sarah Dobson, aka Crazy Mary Dobson, aka Sarah Logan. Some of these women are going full time. Some of the NXT favorites you don't see on this program. You don't see Ember Moon, Athena. You don't see Asuka, Kana. But you see a few people backstage. Anyway, let me get into the Mae Young Classic. I enjoyed this show. I'll say it again, I enjoyed it. It's been great so far. 7 hours of wrestling and maybe an hour or so later tonight, but we'll do the best we can here going through the matches and my notes. What we're going to do with this review is I'm throwing in my own thoughts as we go, but as I go through the matches, from here on, there's going to be spoilers, so you can stop the video here if you don't want spoilers. Otherwise, continue watching, stop whenever you want. I'm going to go through, see, it's a 32-person tournament. So that means there's going to be 16 preliminary matches, round 1. And after that, you eliminate everyone, and so it's 8 matches. And, you go from there, quarterfinals. And in the finals, of course, you just have a one-on-one. Very simple. They have these brackets. There's a whole program called Bracketology. It's 47 minutes on the network as well. It's not necessary to watch it. It does have a few interesting interviews. They don't interview everyone, just a couple of people. Mostly it's just these short little vignettes of, a person doing some moves in slow motion, some close-up shots, and then kind of a voiceover saying, I'm from so-and-so, I'm going to do this or that. And they actually show portions of those little promo clips, pre-recorded clips, during the actual show. So before you see, wrestler X, you'll see wrestler X, say something or whatever. So Bracketology is with Corey Graves and Lita. Not necessary to watch, but if you want to get excited about it, want to see if it's worth your time, you can go ahead and watch that. And, Corey Graves does some kind of funny stuff. He talks about, well, this person's going to win. And they interview the next person, this person's going to win. And this person's going to win. And then Lita starts doing it. It's kind of silly. The commentary is not that great. JR, Jim Ross, good old JR with his cowboy hat, and had recovered from a stroke, and his wife died, but he's still doing all this commentary for WWE. He's done it here, he's done it in Japan. The guy loves to commentate, and he adds a lot to it, but not strictly necessary. I'm used to watching Shimmer without commentary. Even the amazing Dave Prazak and Portia Perez, I often turn off their commentary just so I can focus on the wrestling. And you know how it was for a live show, but whatever. So, Mae Young Classic, here we go. So, it's at the Full Sail University, same place as NXT, kind of a smaller venue, smaller crowd. The ring is set up with, white ropes and kind of an off-white mat during the match, and they light up the lights. Here's where it was kind of, at first I had some misgivings, because they had this Parade of Champions video sequence where, there's a lot of background. You can see the crowd is lit up in blue, and the ring is kind of dimmed, and they have this big ice sculpture trophy kind of looks like something out of Frozen or maybe the Olympic Games. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. Is this big chunk of plastic is going to be handed to the winner? Who knows? But it's their little symbol, and there's a lot of blue used. But it's a standard size ring. What threw me off is many of these wrestlers. There's 32 wrestlers, and maybe a quarter of them, or maybe a third, are from Shimmer. Or I've seen them before. I've seen them wrestle in the independent circuit, or in Japan or wherever. There's only actually one Japanese wrestler, one Joshi, in the tournament, but the others, have appeared elsewhere. They've trained, and so forth. What put me off was the makeup. I know what a silly thing to comment on, but this is women's wrestling, and there's still kind of that. Well, are they going to be attractive? Are they going to be made up? Pretty, whatever. I don't care about that, but whatever. The makeup that the wrestlers wear looks very odd to me. And of course, I've seen many of these wrestlers in person before, wrestling in the ring, signing autographs. I've seen them, of course, on the digital virtual discs of Shimmer, Chikara, and other places. And I'm sort of used to how their faces look. Well, in this, a lot of them had very shiny faces, very layered, thick makeup, very dark lipstick and eyeshadow. They just look ghostly or like clowns, very strange, odd. And I think the reason for that, and this problem goes away later on. As the show starts, they darken the audience, so it's just kind of black. You can still kind of hear people cheering, and the crowd was, so. There weren't long periods of dead, which was good. But you had a lot of Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi chants from the Australian fans, and you had, various cheers going on. It wasn't solid, loud like the early 90s, women's wrestling, but, it was still pretty active. But anyway, at that point, during the actual matches, they look fine. They look normal. They still, you can tell they're wearing more makeup than they did in Shimmer. I suppose this is for the HD, crowd or whatever. But they look a little bit unnatural. It looks more like war paint. But during the Parade of Champions, they look bizarre. Their faces are shiny, ghostly. And I think they kind of screwed up there, but I presume someone backstage must have thought, they don't quite look right. Let's make sure we get it right when the actual matches start. So don't be concerned about that. But you may just think, well, other than a couple wrestlers like Mae Young, who normally wears a lot of makeup, they look kind of strange. It looks like, well, anyway, I'll get into it. So after the Parade of Champions, we finally get into the actual matches. And I'm going to refer to my notes here. So starting off with the Mae Young Classic, we have Kaylee Ray. Yes, I was so excited to see Kaylee Ray from Glasgow, Scotland. And they said it correctly. So if Nikki Storm was there, of course she's Nikki Cross, she would have not had to correct the announcer. That was good. Kaylee Ray versus Princess Suhei, or Suji, or Sujay, or I guess according to Wikipedia, nobody knows. Not even the promotion she's in knows the correct way to spell or pronounce her name, but whatever. Princess Suhei, luchadora, who I had not seen before, with a mask and everything. Kind of a gray hair, smaller, thick, wrestler. I had not seen Princess Suhei before. I don't watch a lot of Lucha Libre, women's wrestling, except for the occasional Lucha Underground, which I'm way behind on. Kaylee Ray, familiar with from Shimmer, High Flyer. This match surprised me. I was so sure that Kaylee Ray was going to go on. And since I didn't watch Bracketology, I watched it after, they really play up Kaylee Ray. And so I thought that for sure she would go farther. Spoiler, Princess Suhei wins this one. Kaylee Ray kind of comes off arrogant, a little bit of a heel, and she is defeated. I didn't actually record much about this, but Kaylee Ray is an excellent wrestler, and I think Princess Suhei obviously very experienced. So, things were just getting warmed up at this point. But I was surprised. So that's always a good thing for wrestling. Get swerved, but nobody ran in and clobbered her with a chair. It was just, she just lost fair and square. So, and you had kind of an active crowd. JR and Lita commenting. Lita, I feel like, didn't talk as much. Some people have said, oh, she's not a good commentator. Obviously, she was a great wrestler in her time in the WWE, WWF Attitude Era. But JR kind of dominates everything. He doesn't always get the names of the moves right. People have said, oh, JR, he makes mistakes. They all make mistakes. I'm not here for the commentary. I'm here for the wrestling. So, first match, not bad. I've seen better from Kaylee Ray. I haven't seen Princess Suhei before, but I was a bit surprised. So they gave the veteran the win. So moving on, the second match. These are still first round matches. Serena Deeb. Yes, Serena Deeb. Back again after 7 years or 2 years. They kind of go back and forth. I'd seen her, of course, in Shimmer. She was in Straight Edge Society, which they commented on. It was nice to hear them actually mention these other things. They don't just pretend a wrestler came out of nowhere. They talk about their past. They talk about other promotions they've been in. Of course, no mention of TNA Good Force Wrestling, which Serena Deeb did appear in TNA back in the day. Briefly, she challenged Awesome Kong and lost. But her time in Shimmer, and she mentions her struggles with alcohol, which was part of the. She was in the Straight Edge Society. They were this group, CM Punk. No drugs, no alcohol. A straight edge, and of course he was a bad guy as well. So he was kind of a holier than thou kind of cult leader. Even though his real life, credo is that sort of thing, supposedly. Do your own research. But anyway, in real life, she was caught drinking in public. I think she may have been intoxicated at another period. And so WWE had to, basically kick her out of the society on the show because all the fans knew that she was being hypocritical according to the character. So, but she mentioned that, and she's... they do little biographical things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'll never get this done, but watch for yourself. Serena Deeb, great wrestler. She's changed her look many times over the years. She's had some surgical operations to change her appearance. But I think she looks good. She looks healthy. She looks strong. She performed well. And she went against Vanessa Bourne, who's a rookie, bigger in stature. Looks very excited, very pumped up to be there. I think they had a decent match. I think Serena, a lot of these matches were a veteran versus a rookie. And so in those types of matches, the veteran, of course, can make anyone look good. And the rookie just kind of goes around. And if the rookie wins, they've really done well because they've conquered, a veteran. And if they lose, at least they went the distance with someone who's already proven themselves. So this was... not a surprise to me. The powerful, hard-hitting Vanessa Bourne was defeated by Serena Deeb. I thought, Serena Deeb is either going to be a fire-and-forget kind of wrestler or she's going to go a long way. So I was not surprised by the outcome. This was a fine match. There was some good moves here and there. And, occasionally through these matches there are botches, there are mistakes, but overall, I think the women, they did very well to cover those mistakes. It's like a move isn't working, so they quickly do some other move or act like they meant to do that. And, if you're really paying attention, that was probably a botch. But if you're not, it's, oh, well, yeah, of course. That looks realistic. And you move on. So, I didn't write... A lot of these matches, as I'm watching, I'm writing down, like, great! Amazing, if it's a really good match. This was okay. It was great to see Serena Deeb again. I think she did well. Match number 3. Yes. Zayda versus Shayna Baszler. Now, this was one, of course, I'm familiar with Shayna Baszler. MMA fighter, UFC. I had not watched her fights. I don't really watch Ultimate Fighting. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 matches, a couple of highlights, but I don't really watch it generally, just like I don't generally watch, actual combat sports like boxing very much. I just prefer the theater of fighting, the fakeness of wrestling, because people aren't really trying to hurt each other, just trying to put on a show that looks realistic. And, there's this storytelling. There is a lot of storytelling in this, and they do the storytelling in the ring. But anyway, so Zeta versus Shayna Baszler. Not familiar with Zeta, but I did, of course, had seen some from Shayna Baszler, and I'll say more about that. Zeta, a little bit of a rookie, kind of a, powerfully built woman, kind of a martial arts theme. I didn't really have a lot of impressions other than that. The thing is, though, Shayna Baszler, kind of a, very plain-looking, small, maybe at first glance unremarkable as a professional wrestler. You kind of picture these characters that are over the top. They're either extremely, beautiful, or they're just extremely, scary looking. They're not kind of vanilla, kind of in the middle. Well, Shayna Baszler, of course, her reputation from UFC, precedes her. She's gotten a little bit of a makeover. It was kind of interesting, to see, because Shayna Baszler, you can barely tell she even has eyebrows. There's very little, if any, makeup. Because why would you wear a whole bunch of makeup in a fight and it's going to run into your eyes and sweat and whatever? I'm not a wrestler, but I just imagine it would be uncomfortable. But Shayna Baszler, she's got makeup and her hair's kind of done and everything, and it's just kind of odd to see her like that. Well, my impression of Shayna Baszler has changed dramatically since she was first introduced in that Shimmer pay-per-view not so long ago. My impression, when I first saw her and heard about her, I thought, oh no, this is another one of those MMA turned professional wrestler people. It's going to be a disaster. They're going to just go away after a very short time and just be forgotten. And the reason I had this impression is because TNA, which I used to watch, week to week, in its entirety, they would constantly bring in these MMA fighters, and they'd be a manager, or they'd be in a tag team, or they'd have one quick, very, quick brawl or something, and then they'd be gone. They'd just go nowhere. And it was sort of this cross-promotion between Impact, TNA Wrestling, and Bellator MMA. It was always disappointing. These, oh my gosh, this big star's coming. It's Tito Ortiz. And then he kind of goes nowhere. And I understand that there are, counter-examples. CM Punk, after years and years of professional wrestling, did an MMA match and was defeated right away. I think he threw one punch and then he got submitted. So it was kind of a disaster. I guess Brock Lesnar has done his own fights and he's done much better. But he's kind of a part-timer as far as wrestling goes. So it's kind of a mixed record with MMA. I don't really care about MMA, Ultimate Fighting, but so I didn't use that as, a positive for Shayna Baszler. I just thought, she's done that, whatever. Let's see what she can do as a wrestler. I was completely wrong about her. Totally wrong. I thought she would be kind of a failure. It sounds as if, though, she's moved into professional wrestling as a second career, not just as a one-off thing. And every match I see with her, I mean, she's a rookie, but she's learned a lot. She comes across as a character, which is very important, as a wrestler, which is important. She does, her moves. Early on, I thought, well, that was probably a mistake there. Or maybe it was a shorter match. She quickly does a submission because maybe she can't go any longer. There's a big thing about Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather and how, he's used to these shorter matches, so he's not going to be able to go the distance. And he did go the distance, but he lost. Whatever. One of the very few boxing matches I've ever watched, just because other people, demanded that, but there's no review there. Whatever. I prefer professional wrestling. So Shayna Baszler, much improved. Much improved. I would say that about her Shimmer appearances. I'd say that about this appearance in the Mae Young Classic. And they really went out of their way to promote her. So, you kind of have a feeling she's going to go far. And spoilers, she does. But anyway, continuing on. She wins. Shayna Baszler defeats Zeta for the third match. And I wasn't super impressed by this, but I was impressed in general with Shayna Baszler and how well she's done. And one thing I noticed, she kind of starts out kind of likable, and she starts to become more arrogant, more heelish as time goes on. And I notice her makeup changes. She seems, at least in, you can compare frame by frame if you disagree, but it looks like she gets more darkened eyeshadow as time goes on, as she becomes more evil. So, there you go. Match number four, Abby Laith. Who the heck is Abby Laith? Well, it's Kimberly, of course. And, she's going against Jazzy Gabbert. Who the heck is Jazzy Gabbert? It's Alpha Female from Germany. Now she really is from Germany, but a lot of these wrestlers, they'll say, representing country from United States. So you had, like, Mae Young represents South Korea, but she's from the United States, and they even say she's from the United States, so it's kind of, that sort of thing was interesting. I haven't seen, and I know this is quite an oversight, but I have not yet watched in its entirety the Cruiserweight Classic. Should have said that earlier. Cruiserweight Classic was kind of the one of the inspirations for the Mae Young Classic. Sounds like a golf tournament, but it's not. Showcasing junior heavyweights, high flyers, what TNA would have called X Division style wrestlers, and of course Mae Young presented. People even chanted women's wrestling at various points. They stopped calling them divas officially a long time ago. But the Cruiserweight Classic was a big deal. Kind of a similar sort of thing. And kind of this attempt to kind of put this on as, it's sports entertainment, but it's less like, maybe like the Attitude Era, where it's just a bunch of crazy guys in a room just kind of beating each other up, or like ECW. It's like, we've had a few drinks, let's fight and smash garbage cans over each other's heads. This is more just like, this is a sports event. This is like the Olympic, tryouts. This is, a real tournament. So there was sort of this emphasis on sports and international stuff. So they really emphasized the countries, the people with flags and things like that. But, at the same time, it's like, yeah, most of these wrestlers are Canadian or American, and they do what they do. But yes, he did have wrestlers from New Zealand and Australia and Japan and Germany. Well, anyway, back to the match. So, Kimberly, as we know her, she's gone through some changes. I feel like, she, her physique, she just looked like, just like a normal woman. And then she sort of kind of slimmed down for a little bit, and so I was kind of shocked. I was like, whoa, I don't know how much weight she lost, but I hadn't seen her for a while. She looked very thin, and then all of a sudden she kind of got it back. So she kind of looks like herself again, from, her introduction in Shimmer to me as a wrestler. But her outfit as Abby Laith reminded me a lot of Lufisto, actually. She had kind of like a lot of scarves and veils, kind of two-piece kind of thing, half skirt, very thick makeup. Looked like she was an Arabian, like, I don't know, dancer or something. The type of outfit that you'd expect to see like Lufisto in. I don't know if that was an intentional kind of nod to that great wrestler who does not appear in this tournament, but I liked it. I was like, yeah, that's nice. But anyway, Kimberly, and she's a face. She's not the usual kind of shrill, annoying heel with Cherry Bomb that she was in Shimmer. Very few of the, well, it's not consistent. I mean, the gimmicks don't necessarily carry over. They don't assume their audience has seen Shimmer, but they do make constant references to Shimmer from the announcers and the backstage stuff. There's Charlie Caruso talking about the brackets, and JR and Lita, mostly JR though. And they show Shimmer footage constantly, and you see actually several wrestlers. People are probably going to kind of wonder, who are those people? I want to see matches with them. But it's funny to see, certain wrestlers getting beat up over and over again, and you think, how are they going to do in the tournament against that same person, or, another one of those people. But anyway, I think Kimberly did fine. You know, she's a bit of a veteran now herself, and of course, Jazzy Gabbert, alpha female. I've only seen a few matches with her, but she always comes across as this powerful monster. You know, kind of a butch look. You know, a very short cropped hair, mohawk, just about. Kind of a deeper voice. You know, as a women's wrestler, you know, she takes some risks because, you know, there's such an emphasis on, well, she's got to be a fighter and she has to be a beautiful model. Well, not alpha female. She's there to destroy. She's like the Undertaker of women from this era. So the two of them have a fight. You can believe that even though Jazzy is stronger, that Abby Laith will do well. And some brutal moves here, some high flying, and then the move, they credit this to Mae Young, this, what do they call it, the alligator clutch or something. It just looks like a variation of a pin, really. You know, I'm sure back in the day, because, you know, wrestling in the black and white era was much more like, it was still sports entertainment, but a lot more people, I think, thought it was real. It was more of a wink and a nod, and it was much more focused on brawling and grappling, as if it were amateur wrestling, let's say. So that kind of move made sense back then. Here it looks a little odd, because it's like, oh my gosh, she's doing a pin! She's pinning her! She won with a pin! And she does win with a pin. But whatever, obviously they wanted to pay tribute to Mae Young and her in her prime, so there you go. But I enjoyed this match. I think they both looked good, did what they did. Jazzy looking much more like herself, alpha female. She looked like she had a bit more of a tan. It may have been a fake tan, maybe the lighting, but otherwise, you know, very similar to what we imagine. And even though alpha female, kind of a, you know, very less feminine than your typical professional women's wrestler, at the same time, they did kind of pretty her up a little bit more, gave her a little bit more makeup and so forth. So there you go. And of course, Abby Laith, ton of makeup, more like war paint, just about. But it worked for her. You know, she did the sparkly stuff and whatever. It's not all about aesthetics, but that kind of draws you in. So good match between the two of them. Some of Kimberly Abby Laith's facial expressions, they zoomed in on her. It reminds me of Lucille Ball, you know, I Love Lucy. Just these very expressive faces. And that's one of the things that professional wrestlers do. You can't hear them necessarily talking during the match. You're not supposed to be able to. Most of the time, just occasionally just they scream and just do these facial expressions, whether they're upset because they failed to pin their opponent, or their move missed, or they're just in incredible pain from the hold that they're in. So, good match. Moving on to the next match, and I'm gonna have to kind of pick up the pace just because I have a lot more to get through, so sorry, I get kind of hung up on match number 5 of the Mae Young Classic, round 1. Mercedes Martinez. Yes, you know, all those, you know, gestures she does a lot of them. And Mercedes, oh, it was so good to see. I was so happy, and I was so glad that they gave her the respect she has earned and deserves after all these years. It was always her dream to be in the WWE. She had one match and that's it. And I've seen interviews where she kind of gave up. I probably have too many tattoos, you know, I'm probably too old, I have too many injuries, it's not going to happen, oh well. You know, and just kind of like, You know, I knew she had a great career. I haven't seen every single match she's ever been in, but I've seen a good number, and I've always been impressed. You know, she has that big smile that's just so, you know, infectious. But most of the time she kind of turns that smile upside down, and she's grimace, and she looks tough. She looks like she could really hurt someone, like she's really going to try to, you know, do some damage. I've always been impressed by her, and so I'm always glad when that respect is generated from the WWE corner. So I was really glad that they gave her credit, finally. Not that they bashed her before, but they just, nobody knew who she was because they didn't talk about her. So there you go. Mercedes Martinez, great to see her, and I thought, oh, I hope they treat her right, and they did. Versus Xia Li, spelled with an X. Xia Li from China, and she wears this red one-piece outfit. She has this fan. She does kind of a fan dance, kind of, kung fu-esque type of thing. That, oh goodness, what's going to happen here? Mercedes is so powerful, such a veteran. She put her through her paces. It seemed like kind of a shorter match, not totally a squash, but I was glad to see Mercedes take the win. And so I was getting really excited at this point. I thought, this show is going to be good. I know this show is going to be good. I just can't wait to see what's next. And I tried not to see too many spoilers. I think I briefly glanced at the brackets, and so I could sort of see, maybe I saw one or two match outcomes before I actually watched it, but I didn't study it. So mostly these were surprises for me, so that was good. So moving on, not a whole lot to say there, except, Mercedes is great. She's wonderful, and she picks it up. She does more in later matches, saving her energy. Trying to see. Mercedes does a great job. She has so many little gestures she's obviously practiced over the years. Selling moves, facial expressions. Showing anger. Different stages of emotion. She just really does well. And she carried Xylee. I don't know anything about Xylee other than this match, so she did fine. But I sense that as much younger wrestler, she's less experienced, and but she didn't. Neither one of them came off bad in this match. Moving on. Oh yes, something I didn't mention. They do several different referees as they go. Some of them are female. Well, one of them is female, and they made a big deal about this. The first female referee in WWE in however many years, if ever. And so that was kind of cool. The other referees there, they don't really stand out much. I didn't see any ref bumps or anything like that. It's not like Andy Long is there, kind of becoming part of the show. I mean, the referee's always part of the show, but you're not supposed to notice them very much. You do hear the referee say, protect yourself when someone's getting beat down. So that added kind of the realism layer. Because if a fighter can't protect themselves in a real combat sport, they throw in the towel, they can't stop the fight, or whatever. Because if they can't, it's like they're knocked out on their feet. Because wrestlers won't quit, and sometimes they have to be stopped. So that was good. They always put up their hands to be checked, for foreign objects. They always do that in the last-minute instructions. And the handshake before the match, Ring of Honor, coming to life again. A required handshake, but later on you'll start to see, Shayna Baszler not shaking hands. Mercedes Martinez maybe not shaking a hand, and so some things. That adds to kind of the mood of the match. Or maybe the wrestlers will shake hands, but kind of come in close like, Jazzy Gabbert, gripping that hand a little bit, like in a little bit of an intimidation. So, that adds to the whole atmosphere. So I think that was a nice choice by the management, whoever, the bookers of the matches. Okay, moving on. Sixth match. Rachel Evers, or Rachel Ellering, but Rachel Evers versus Marty Bell. Marty Bell, seeing her in Shimmer, seeing her in TNA. I kind of thought, she's a rookie, and she kind of comes across as a rookie. They really talked her up. She's representing the Dominican Republic. She came to this country as a child and became part of the NYC. She didn't have a gimmick of spraying her hair over and over like Zema Ion this time. I guess they both each came up with that hairspray. There's a little bit of the sass that Marty Bell is known for, but mostly she kind of came across as someone who's just very grateful to be there. I mean, during the Parade of Champions, she kind of her face kind of quivered a little bit. It almost looked like she was maybe about to cry, kind of overcome with emotions, thinking about her family and about how far she's come and representing. I don't know if that was acting, if that was genuine, but it came across as genuine. So a little bit more sympathetic towards Marty Bell. I think I saw something online saying, well, she was going to go into the second round, but they didn't think she was that good, so they just cut her off there. And I didn't see that in the match, but if that's true, I mean, it's too bad. Maybe that's why she was upset, but anyway, she's a professional, so she does what she does. You have the enhancement talent. People that lose are not losers. They're part of the show. That's the whole point. They're trying to make the other person look good. Somebody's got to lose. You can't just have, ties and draws all the time. So, Rachel Evers versus Marty Bell. The divided crowd rears up. This happens. Let's go so-and-so, let's go so-and-so. Obviously, there were a lot of geeks, a lot of women's wrestling nerds in the audience, a lot of signs. I didn't say this before, but someone held up a huge sign. I believe it was possibly during the Parade of Champions even. So thank you, Prazak. Dave Prazak, getting a shout out there. There was Team Kick, hashtag Team Kick, Evie. Obviously a lot of fans, people with Shakara shirts in the front row. There was Ronda Rousey was there. They kept, every episode there was like, oh, hey, here's Shinsuke Nakamura. Here's, so-and-so, celebrity. They did that, but there was, obviously they packed the crowd. Izzy was there, the little girl, even though Bayley wasn't wrestling. There were a lot of obvious women's wrestling fans that traveled the distance, and I'm sure Marty Bell had her fans as well in the audience, not just family. So, good crowd, generally. Sometimes the women's wrestling crowd can be a little jaded. I don't know if there were any of the cynical fans, but it seemed like they were pretty excited. There was maybe one or two times someone made a joke. You couldn't hear it, but a couple people around them laughed. But that didn't dominate. One thing that annoyed me about the audience was whenever, and I'd heard about this through podcasts, I listened to Solo Monster, Don Tony, and Kevin Castle, stuff like that. 1, 2, kick out. And then the audience goes, 2, sweet, which I guess is a Kevin Nash thing. I don't care. And they said, oh, that's an annoying. Well, they did, the crowd did this throughout the entire 7 hours. It started to get on my nerves, too. But I just tried to tune it out, focus on the match. 1, 2, sweet. Okay. And I hate to say it, but I always, if this makes it a downer, but I always think of Sweet and Sour, Larry Sweeney. So, rest in peace, sad story. But anyway, good friend of Sarah Mato and others. He appeared in Shimmer briefly. I'm sorry to bring that up, but anyway, enough with the too sweet, please. Okay, so, it was an okay match. It ended by a roll-up, inside cradle. Rachel Ellering, powerful, built wrestler. She looks tough. She looks like she could play football. I don't know. And Marty Bell was defeated. But it was a decent enough match. Not super great, but I feel like, Marty Bell, she's still learning. Her matches aren't fantastic, but they're not terrible either. So it's just kind of okay, and that's how it goes. So, match number 7, Rhea Ripley versus, what is this? Miranda Salinas? Can't read my own writing. From Texas, shorter wrestler. Rhea Ripley, a soccer player, kind of tall, lanky. Her build kind of reminds me a bit of cheerleader Melissa. So anyway, bit of a reluctant handshake at the start. Let's see. Don't have a lot of notes about this one. It's just kind of an okay match. It's harder when it's two wrestlers you're not familiar with, you've never seen before, and you're just kind of watching, and it's like, well, what's going to happen? So they go on, and let's see. There was winner by pin for Rhea Ripley. Of course, she goes on. She looks powerful. She looks strong. Looks like she could do some damage, do some kicks with those soccer, legs. So there you go. I believe she had some kind of braids on the sides of her hair, which is common with women wrestlers, amateur, collegiate, Olympic wrestlers. Cornrow the hair back so that it doesn't get in your face. But then she had the long hair on the side, so it didn't really matter. But just kind of a thing. Some people think it makes you look tough. So. Number 8, Sarah Logan, formerly Crazy Mary Dobson, who I guess is becoming a regular part of NXT. I haven't seen her wrestle there yet, but Sarah Logan versus Mia Yim. And they actually kept her name. It's Mia Yim. It's not Jade. Of course, Jade is Impact Wrestling. But anyway. So the two of them, Sarah Logan, I like Crazy Mary Dobson. She looks like, in her face, she just looks like a very young, girl, even though she's a fully grown woman, of course. Crazy Mary, with her kind of just creepy, just goofiness, like she's just kind of not really there. She's kind of childlike, and kind of sadistic, and just fun to watch, and just just unexpected. But Sarah Logan, a little bit different. She's like, I'm a tough farm girl. I'm gonna beat you up, for my Uncle Tater or whatever. This was JR talking, and so I don't know. I guess she's now some kind of southern, backwoods, fur pelt wearing, tough person who does chores and goes hunting with her uncle or whatever, and so she's whatever. So not, it's a different character. I have no problem with people playing characters, but for me it was maybe a moment. I was almost like seeing the Undertaker as the biker. You're like, wait a minute, go back to the other thing. That was better. But whatever. I like the character. Sarah Dobson, whatever. She does fine. She does great. And she was believable as someone who, is just tough. She's just, she can run with the boys. She can run with the girls. She can do whatever. Kind of rough and tumble. And Mae Young, believable as, oh, she's got her good looks and everything, and lots of makeup. She always wears lots of makeup. And she does the kicks, and she's got, expressive face, and they both are, kind of like the rookies who have now come into their own. So, Mae Young a little bit more than Sarah Logan, but they had a good match together, and they did a little bit of a backstory about Mae Young. I'm not going to get into everything. She kept pointing to her hand, and I was thinking at first, is she engaged? Is that a ring? I couldn't quite see. But then they explained it later. No, she painted one of her fingernails purple to talk about domestic violence, which, kind of caught me off guard because I remember the Q&A session for Shimmer. She kept talking about Eddie Kingston, her boyfriend, and how they kept fighting and fighting. And I was like, wait a minute, but then I did some research, and she was not talking about a current boyfriend. Thank goodness she's not in an abusive relationship, but in the past, she had, I guess, had dated this man who was a wrestler who was very violent towards her, not in a kayfabe way, but really in an abusive way. So and she did this article. It was for the Huffington Post, and they kind of mentioned it briefly. And so there's a little bit of softer side of Mae Young to say, hey, yeah, I am a fighter and a strong woman and all this, but I've been a victim of battery from, a domestic partner, significant other. So that was, and then she wears the purple to kind of just say, hey, I survived. It's a story. And so there was some other wrestlers about that do that, and they point to this, and it's like, well, why are you pointing to your finger? But then they had to explain it. So it's like, that was interesting. But as far as the match goes, Mae Young is Mae Young. She does her kicks, she does her top rope move, she does her submissions, and Sarah Logan does what she does, which is fight. And so I enjoyed this match. I'd say, again, still kind of warming up. The thing is, I'm used to such a high level of quality from all of these women. Shimmer matches are regular length, they do regular moves, there's regular storytelling. So I imagine a fan who's watching, even who isn't familiar with these women but is willing to give them a chance, is being blown away at this point, because they're like, wait a minute, women who can actually wrestle, who aren't just eye candy, who don't just have a 2-3 minute match, who can actually do moves, just would be blown away. But an indie fan would just be kind of like, well, of course, this is just what we see, this is what they do, nothing too remarkable. So it was good wrestling. It's been good wrestling up to now. And so I say they had a good match. Sarah Logan defeated. I couldn't believe it. I really thought, well, Mae Young, she's not really a, WWE person, so she's going to get defeated. And then Sarah Logan, up and comer, going into NXT, she's going to go, even though Sarah Dobson's first appearance on NXT, she was destroyed by Bayley in a very short time. As most of their matches are short, except for the pay-per-views even. Even NXT really doesn't do it justice. This is better than NXT, as far as women's wrestling. Nothing against Asuka. I love Kana. But even her matches are very short compared to what she's done outside. So, Mae Young Classic is the real deal. And I would say, I haven't said this before, I enjoyed the Mae Young Classic better than, they've had several of these TNA one-night-only knockouts, knockdown. I like this better than the TNA. Not just because of the TNA WWE rivalry. I think each company does some things better than the other. But with TNA knockouts, knockdown, I felt like the whole purpose was to, even though they said, well, it's out of continuity, it's to continue the storylines that are on the weekly television program and to put over, to promote their own wrestlers at the expense of the Shimmer wrestlers. The Shimmer wrestlers come in to get defeated, to job to their own wrestlers to make them look better. Well, I feel like the Mae Young Classic is not necessarily that way. It's possible that some of the wrestlers, obviously, who do well here are going to be bigger in the show later on in NXT or Raw or SmackDown. They're trying to promote these people, but not necessarily. They may come and go. So here you have Sarah Logan. You think, oh, well, of course she's going to win because she's going to be big in NXT. And Mae Young isn't. Or we don't know. But you just sort of assume that, and nope. Mae Young goes on. Sarah Logan's defeated. Sarah Logan's going to do other things elsewhere. So, nothing is for sure, as Sting would say. So, I enjoyed this match. Not a whole lot of other things to say about it. Again, we're just kind of getting our bearings here. 9th match. Just cognizant of the time. Gotta wrap things up pretty soon. Try my best. We had Toni Storm against Aisha Renand. Sorry, handwriting isn't always the best with some of these. But Aisha versus Toni. So, Toni Storm, her gimmick, she's got like one black line under her eye, kind of like half of an American football. They do this so that the glare doesn't go in their eyes. And then she has this tiny little top hat, this side, like Daphne. And then she has this kind of rock star look. And she does this much better, I think, than Rockstar Spud, if you remember him. She does kind of this, she comes out looking like a sort of a comical female version of Slash from Guns N' Roses. She's got the long hair, and she's got kind of the throwing up the Texas horns and the, so she had a kind of a good, and her facial expressions, like she's like, it's kind of hard to explain. Her jaw just kind of drops, and she's big eyes. She's like, and a lot of the wrestlers said this, well, I become a different person when I go into the ring. Well, she definitely does. She's kind of clowning around, kind of grinding her hips around, and just kind of like this old school rocker, late 80s, early 90s. But it's a woman doing it, not a man. Of course, back then, the men, they wore really tight pants and long hair and makeup. They looked kind of different, kind of odd, but, they were the heartthrobs back then. So Toni Storm, and then Aisha Ramand. A bit of a heel. And more. Aisha, I give her credit because she did a great thing here. I like it, and I've said this before, I like it when women's wrestlers step out of the box. They become, it's more like men's wrestling, because not every, put it this way, not every male wrestler is going to be like a Heavenly Bodies, Fabio hair, great, muscular physique. Not every men's wrestler is, meant to be attractive. Some of them are kind of slobs, they're kind of fat, they're kind of grizzled, or they're just ordinary guys, or maybe, they have different things. They're scary. So, Aisha, she's very muscular, and she's kind of got face paint on to look kind of like a cat, kind of like a panther, kind of like a ferocious animal, and I like that. It made it look fierce, it made it look tough. Just go, and it was, and she talks about that in her promo. So I appreciated that, and she was, that added to her credibility as a fighter. And then Toni Storm just kind of like, ooh, I'm a rock star. I thought, well, This is obviously going to go one way. Obviously, the animal is going to destroy the rocker. As it turns out, she missed a big move and she got pinned. She got rolled up, and Toni Storm was victorious. Toni Storm. So, interesting match. These two wrestlers I'm not familiar with beforehand, so I had no idea what was going to happen. So, but I was entertained by it. They both good looks, characters, expressions, and things. When Toni Storm, like, she couldn't believe it. Like, this is my opportunity. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna win, and she does, and she moves on. Point they did mention Sarah Del Rey, Sarah Amato rather. That's her real last name. They showed her. Well, she's a coach. She's a trainer. They didn't talk about any of her wrestling career. Her face looks the same. It's odd to see her with a bunch of makeup on. Dressed proper for the occasion. Looks like, you can sort of tell she still has her physique. But I remember seeing photos of her, like, when she first became a trainer for NXT, and I thought she looked radically different. Like, she hadn't been working out. She just looked like a normal person. I was kind of shocked. Maybe, like, she'd lost some weight, and I thought, oh, she's lost her wrestling physique, and she'll never be back. But I think it looked like she'd been training a little bit more. I don't know. It could all just be the camera angles and what she was wearing, but anyway, Sarah Amato, there you go. I'm sure she's very proud. I'm really glad the WWE got her working for them, because I imagine she has had a lot to do with the fact that, you have this connection, getting these good women's wrestlers from Shimmer to be noticed by WWE, to be promoted on television, and the course of the matches to be a little bit higher quality, not just these short, eye candy things to promote Total Divas and all this nonsense that they've been doing since the Divas Revolution / Women's Revolution has begun. I think WWE hasn't really done a very good job with it. It's kind of going back and forth. First it was good, and it was kind of became more of the same. It was good again, and more of the same. I remember this was a point I was going to make earlier, and kind of all over the place with my notes, but the Cruiserweight Classic, a lot of fans praised it, which is why I really want to see it, because I love X Division, I love, High Flyers. The Cruiserweight Classic was very good, and then they started this show called 205 Live, where they did it over and over again with these wrestlers, and a lot of the podcasters, the fans, said, it's just not as good. It's kind of watered down, it's kind of boring, it's not very exciting. Why couldn't it have been as good as the Cruiserweight Classic? Why does 205 Live have to be mediocre? And I'm not sure if they're planning to do a women's wrestling only show more regularly than this, or do more than one Mae Young Classic, but my hope is if they do, that they don't fall into the same problem as 205 Live and all of a sudden water it down and make it just kind of more of the same. Some of that may have to do with, like, who's in charge of doing it, what they're allowed to do. I mean, they always credit Triple H. There's certain writers, Sarah Amato. Once it gets out of the NXT kind of sphere, who knows? If it's all Vince McMahon saying, well, we'll just do it the way we always do it. I don't know how it really works backstage, but hopefully it doesn't diminish like that. I'm content if they only do one Mae Young Classic ever, that's fine, but if they're going to do more of it, hopefully it's of the same quality, and they let the women shine, pardon the pun, and not just be like how it always was with the shorter kind of bathroom break type. Right along, match 10, Dakota Kai, who is Evie from Auckland, New Zealand. Love her. Slender, small, shiny outfits. Actually, this time, Dakota Kai, Evie, they got to, do the interviews and stuff. She looks kind of like Chun-Li from Street Fighter 4. She had these little hair buns, and she had kind of a flowery print, two-piece outfit with the boots. Just kind of reminded me of Chun-Li from Street Fighter. Obviously much smaller. She, of course, has a very, very youthful appearance. She's, not, I think what did they say her age? But it was just, I was surprised. I was like, really? Of course, she just has very young appearance. But anyway, always good to see her. She kind of plays that sort of underdog, but, she definitely is powerful. She can convince you that, she can mount the comeback. And she went against... Kavita Devi. Kavita Devi, this Indian wrestler, they made a big deal about how, we haven't had a female Indian wrestler, in WWE ring before. She wore kind of an orange outfit, and she was just very, like, strong, like, big, strong woman, kind of like a Jazzy Gabbert kind of wrestler. Very just, plain moves, but a credible threat. Like, I'm just here to destroy you, not to be fancy. So, not familiar with her, but of course I was rooting for Evie. She mounts the comeback, and she's able to defeat Kavita Devi. And I think it was basically, and the commentators did this, Kavita Devi she didn't capitalize on the move and say, oh, it was a rookie mistake, she should have, followed up with the move, and she didn't, and, she took too much time, and that gave Dakota Kai the chance to make a comeback and defeat her. So, decent match. I think they both did well. Again, glad to see the characters. Moving on to the next match, match number 11. Brianna Belair. Oh, no, not Brianna. Handwriting. Bianca Belair versus Sage Beckett. Now, Bianca Belair, kind of an interesting character. She kind of swaggers in. She's got this sparkly, stuff about she's the est, what? The best. She kind of spins around, and she's kind of twirling this top knot braid. She has this very long braid coming off of her hair, and her hair is in this very long whip-like braid, and she's twirling it like a old-style fob watch, and then they show footage of her, like, slapping her opponents with her hair as a weapon, just whipping them. Which you think, okay, that's kind of an interesting way to break the rules, because it's not a foreign object, it's part of your body. Then I suppose she could choke people with it, but then at the same time you think it'd be a liability, you think she'd be tripping over it, you think people would be grabbing it and whipping her with it, or whipping it around or choking her with it. But whatever. Interesting gimmick, I hadn't seen it before, the actual hair whip. Not just whipping your hair, but whipping people with your hair. And she's very muscular, very tall, kind of a rookie, but, nice, interesting gimmick there. And then Sage Beckett, she has kind of a bit of a cowboy look. Let's see, what was it? Sage Beckett, large, statured woman, kind of a half Phantom of the Opera mask. What else did I say? Yeah, just kind of a... It was kind of a hard fight. Let me just correct something here. Okay, so I may have been a little confused. Sage Beckett actually is... Andrea is Rosie Latalove. I completely forgot my notes. I was a little bit jumbled up. The cowboy girl you see later. Sage Beckett. Rosie Latalove was in TNA. She was a large, obese woman, and she sat on or splashed on top of Daphne's chest and actually broke her ribs. And so people were like, she's a bad wrestler. Not supposed to do that. She slimmed down. She wrestled maybe 1 or 2 matches here or there. I think she was in TNA and NXT at various times. But now she has a new gimmick. Sage, tall, she is muscular, a little bit more trim than like a Nia Jax, but big. And her gimmick this time is she has like the tips of her fingers all painted, like inked or something, and she's kind of like she's a, and they call her a shaman. She's not a witch, she's a shaman. She's drawing power, not like not like a Papa Shango, let's say. She didn't have face makeup or a big top hat or anything. She wasn't a voodoo queen or anything, but, just some kind of, like, possibly supernatural kind of shenanigans going on, kind of movements. So it's kind of an interesting character. But Bianca Belair did defeat her. So it was a clash of, two, hard-hitting power fighters. So it was good to see that too. It isn't just these very, very tiny women that look like they couldn't hurt anyone. It was very strong. So you think, okay, well, one of them's going to go on, and someone's going to have to fight one of these, large women. So moving on, after Bianca Belair took the win, yes, we have number 12, match number 12, Piper Niven. I guess she's known as Viper. I hadn't seen her wrestle before, from Scotland, against, if I can read it, of course, Santana Garrett. They made many references to Wonder Woman, even though she didn't dress as Wonder Woman. I believe Princess Suhei did later. But I was glad to see that, because she really does look like she could have been cast to play Wonder Woman in the 70s. She's got the long boots, she's got the trim figure, kind of a long, dark, flowing hair, the big smile. Like she often wears these headbands. It looks like the little crown. Totally Wonder Woman. Not every version of her, of course, but kind of maybe a popular version. Santana Garrett, very thin. Piper Niven, the opposite. Her body is shaped like a barrel, very heavy. You'd say obese woman. And she really talked up, very confident, big smile. Piper Niven, she does what a large wrestler of that physique should do, like an earthquake, Yokozuna, their proud tradition. She uses her bulk to just look like she's just pulverizing or just smashing and squishing her opponent. Of course, and Santana Garrett is very thin, so it looks like she's going to get crushed to death. And so the fans really reacted. She'd do this body splash on her. It's like, no! And she just avalanche in the corner. Now, Lufisto, not in the tournament, but I did notice a lot of wrestlers doing the avalanche in the corner, where they spin around and kind of their backside and their legs just kind of like hit the person. It looks like it smashes the person's face. Just roll up and bam! And everyone's like, ah! Like, it looks like it's so painful. So, Piper Niven, Santana Garrett, she did her best. She did her fancy best, but Piper Niven, just too powerful. Just crushed her. And I'm trying to think if it was this match. It looked like her ear had gotten bloodied, and it's hard to tell because her hair kind of covers it up, but it looked like her ear had maybe gotten struck and gotten bloodied. You didn't see any bleeding, blading in these matches, but occasionally that looks a little, maybe, hopefully they get that cared for. Now, in the logic of this tournament, I think it's supposed to be like 1 week later or something between the two rounds, but in reality it was like one night, next night, so they really didn't have much time to recover from these matches. You think, my goodness, how are they ever going to get it done? Whereas in terms of, watching it, you're watching it a week later, maybe you're watching it a month later, it can happen. So I think that the wrestlers they showed the first two rounds in 2 nights, and then they got a little bit of a break before the finals, which is, of course, just 2 wrestlers for today, later today. So moving on, Piper Niven took the number 13. We have 32 participants, so we're just grinding through these. Renee Michelle versus Candice LeRae. Again, I'm happy whenever these wrestlers get to keep their common name, the popular name as a wrestler. Candice LeRae, of course, big, giant smile with big white teeth, and her bleach platinum hair, and, small figure, small physique. She's married now. Her husband, Johnny Gargano, who's also a wrestler, not familiar with him, but I've heard his name before. He was in the front row, cheering her on, and she's just full of spunk and just, not from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride anymore. She's from Ms. LeRae's Wild Ride. And she didn't use her uncouth move where she grabs the person's crotch. She and, of course, Joey Ryan, who's also a married man now, I guess he has some kind of, well, I'll get into that another, not a PG wrestler, let's just put it, kind of molests his opponents sometimes, is kind of a sleazebag, but anyway, Candice LeRae had a little bit of that in her background. I think she's kind of cleaned up a little bit. She's a little more family-friendly this time. Candice LeRae, hard not to, be sort of charmed by her. And then Renee Michelle. Hadn't seen her wrestle before. She almost looks like she could have been one of the divas back in the 90s. More of a traditional kind of beauty, if you will. Fighter. I think they said, well, she had some martial arts training or MMA background. They often say that about these wrestlers. I don't watch it, so I don't know. I haven't seen it. This is wrestling chant came up. This is wrestling. So not much to say about this other than, at first I thought maybe poor Candice LeRae had bloodied her nose at one point, but I think maybe it's just a stray hair or something. It's deceptive because you think, oh, Candice LeRae, she doesn't look like she could do anything. She bakes cupcakes. What is this? But she sort of has that crazy, person thing, like she just loves to fight. She just does what she does. But it's a believable match. So, looks can be deceiving. Don't judge a book by its cover. Good match. I kind of thought, come on, Candice LeRae, she has to win. She has such hardcore fans, of course. It's like they could have just brought her in as enhancement talent, but she won. She moves on. Candice LeRae is the winner of match 13. Now, moving on to match 14. Lacey Evans versus Tanya Corti. Tanya Corti. Had to look at the name. I apologize if I butcher any of these names, but Tanya Conti, judo background. They say, blonde-ish, woman with a kind of a martial arts, style judo-themed outfit. Looks like she's tough. And then Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans, they play up that she was a Marine SWAT team member, military. Her family's there, her little girl's there. She gives her an American flag. Evans kind of steals a little bit of the spotlight because she comes out, she looks like this World War II pin-up girl. She has kind of a sailor suit theme, and she has white gloves and kind of, these hosiery that looks like, from the 1940s, blonde hair kind of done up, and she's kind of like, sashaying around with doing these little gestures, and not a Marilyn Monroe, but just kind of that pin-up girl, propaganda poster inspired character, and very strong though, very deceptive. She kind of comes across as this glamour girl, but really she's a strong fighter. And of course, Tanya, very much a serious, martial arts fighter. So the two of them have a match. Not familiar with either of these wrestlers. Wasn't sure how it's going to turn out. But in the end, Lacey Evans takes it. And she's got that heartwarming family story and, support our veterans kind of thing that carries her through. Match number 15, getting close to the end. Thanks for sticking around. Nicole Savoy, good old Nicole Savoy. They toned down her character a little bit for this, which I was kind of disappointed by. I mean, normally she has so much trash talking, so much attitude, so much swagger and arrogance. I just love it. But, some of it's not very PG, so maybe that's what they wanted to do. And, she's got a little more makeup, a little bit more prettied up. But Nicole Savoy, just very impressive wrestler. I think she had like a brace on or something, so she's still, she's had some injuries. These high-flying wrestlers, they really take a lot of risks. So Nicole Savoy versus... Okay, I'm going to have to check this this one again with my handwriting. I scribbled these notes down in the midst of these matches. I thought that's what I wrote. Reina Gonzalez. Earlier I said Tanya. It's Tanyara for earlier Conti. Well, anyway, Reina Gonzalez. She's the one with the half Phantom of the Opera mask and the cowboy hat. Kind of a larger woman, not, Piper Niven's size, but, bigger than your Dakota Kai's. But anyway, she came out. I'm not familiar with her. Reina Gonzalez, of course, I was rooting for Nicole Savoy all the way. They called Nicole the Queen of Suplexes. Reina Gonzalez, I'm trying to think. You know, I might have seen her in a match. No, I guess I'm just not sure. She looks kind of familiar, but there are a few wrestlers that kind of have similar styles, so I'll just say no more about that. I totally predicted Nicole Savoy was going to win, and she does. She gets it with an arm bar, and she wins by submission, which was great. Nicole Savoy, just so versatile. She can do the high flyer stuff, you know, and you don't always have high flying heels. I mean, Christopher Daniels made it work. But anyway, Nicole Savoy, very great wrestler, and Gonzalez was a fine opponent. But I think this was, I guessed this one correctly, that Nicole Savoy was going to take it. And match number 16, the final match, finally, for round 1. I'm going to try to get these videos out as soon as I can, but I don't know if you'll get to see them before the actual show, but, you know, I hope you check them out. I hope you check out the show, most of all. Kairi Sane, who I guess I had not seen her before, but she goes by Kairi Hojo, and there was a big deal. I was watching listening to some podcasts. They're talking about, oh, she's coming to the WWE, she's coming to the main roster. Oh my gosh, she's this great, you know, Joshi wrestler. She's so good. I hadn't seen her before. What people were saying about Kairi is that her elbow drop would make the Macho Man proud. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that. Apparently Macho Man Randy Savage's elbow now has some competition, or at least a humble tribute from this Japanese women's wrestler. She's actually kind of small. She's actually kind of unassuming. She's a very expressive face. You know, watching her, and I hope the fans at home notice this, Japanese women wrestler, they're trained so well. You know, even a promotion like Ice Ribbon or Stardom, you know, some of these, they're kind of like cheesecake kind of model recruiting places, but at the same time, even then, their wrestlers are so good, and they're so good compared to those in the United States of America. As far as women go, I mean, the thing is, women wrestlers are great. They are great, but the problem is, most of them never get seen on television. And if they are seen on television, they're given short matches, they're given cheesy gimmicks, they're not taken seriously, and so it's always nice to see that they can show what they can do. Now, she's still wrestling in a non-Japanese promotion, so maybe, you know, it's PG and everything, so she can't maybe do all that she normally could, but she's just so expressive. And they subtitled everything she said in her backstage interviews, so that was good. So she didn't have to go through a translator. She didn't have to just memorize a few English phrases and say them. Great gestures. She tells a story. She comes across as kind of this idealistic young woman who loves yachting, and she wears a pirate outfit, and she has this spinning, you know, wheel, you know, that you turn the ship with, and big hat with feathers, and just the showmanship from her, you know, just excellent. And characteristic of Joshi wrestling. So I'm telling you, check out Japanese women's wrestling from the 90s up to today, and you'll see some of the best in the world as far as women's wrestling. They're just their wrestling is so, technique is so good, their excitement is so good, they can tell a story in the ring. And so even when they're hampered by the inability to do promos, you know, fully with the language barrier, they still do it amazing. And so I think there was all that hype going, but the hype is justified. She really is that good. And because she's smaller, see, people maybe assume, oh, a woman wrestler's from Japan, she's automatically like a powerhouse. Not necessarily. She's kind of unassuming, kind of small, almost like a Cutie Suzuki, you know, from back in the day, if you remember her. But she has the fighting spirit, and she comes out, and she's not so arrogant. You can see fear in her eyes at times, but she becomes triumphant, and she, you know, just kind of rises above it, and just does what she does. So Kairi Sane and her unfortunate opponent Tessa Blanchard. Now, I give Tessa Blanchard all the credit in the world, because when she first came out, her character was, well, I'm not going to ride the coattails of my family name. And then she rides the coattails of a family name. And I'm a great fighter, I'm a great wrestler. And then she gets Vanessa Craven to do all the dirty work for her. But over time, and now some of these matches have not been released from Shimmer yet, Tessa Blanchard has grown by leaps and bounds. She is a competent wrestler. She's a good wrestler. She's a good character. She's a believable fighter. She has improved so much to the point where I enjoy watching her. I'm not just going to kind of like brush it off. But she has that look. You think, oh, well, she's perfect for NXT because she's, attractive, and she has that family name, so she's going to join Charlotte Flair and Natty Neidhart and all these other wrestlers who get by on their name, even though they're also good, but the name is kind of like what they get credit for. Well, I think whatever deficiencies might have been there, she's earned her. And her makeup was just caked on, I gotta say. So that was a little odd, because she has such a large face. It's just like, just throw the makeup on. I don't know, whatever. But Tessa Blanchard, I'm sure she's thrilled to be there. And against, this is the Joshi test. They always did this in Shimmer. They would take an up-and-coming wrestler and put them against a Japanese wrestler to see if they could go the distance. And usually they get beaten. And spoilers, Kairi Sane defeats Tessa Blanchard with the amazing elbow, and it really does look amazing. She just goes up and her body just kind of completely tilts, and it looks like she just like she just drives it down like a spike into the person's chest. It's all fake, of course, it's wrestling, but it looks really good. And I hope she doesn't like break her hip or her back, doing it. But it's a great move. But anyway, Tessa Blanchard gets defeated, but in the process, Tessa, if you'd never seen her before, you think she's powerful, she's tough. She went that far with such a talented wrestler. So it rubs off. It gives this person, the benefit of, you went the distance with someone really good. You're not so bad yourself. So that concludes the first round matches. I'm going to cut the video off, and I'm going to do another one for the next round. But Mae Young Classic, more to come. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.